We are now in the Late Thermocene. Serina by this time has had more than 100 million years of relative stability, with a stable climate well suited to the long-term survival of many plant and animal groups. Now, however, a newly emerging plant group threatens to completely overturn everything, and it has only existed for less than 1 million years. Assassin grasses are a newly evolving genus of tropical and temperate grass, which has evolved a very dramatic and effective manner of reducing their competition upon the grasslands where they originate. They have evolved to produce a powerful natural herbicide in their leaf tissues, to which the assassin grass itself has evolved immunity. The leaves of assassin grass are edged in small, fluid-filled beads which are easily ruptured, leaking a clear, odorless fluid containing the compound. The beads are popped easily by the movements of animals, but this isn't their primary function. Their main use is to be abraded and broken by the harder, silica-edged leaf tips of other grasses when they come into contact, releasing the harmful agent which then bleeds freely and is absorbed into the competitor's leaf tissues, causing dieback of the affected stems within several days wherever the assassin touches. The herbicidal agents at use are several closely related chemicals known as sulfonylurias, which interfere with the synthesis of amino acids in most other plants which have not developed a natural tolerance, slowly causing them to wither and die. Through deterrence to herbivores was likely not the primary reason for the assassin grass to develop its defenses. An added benefit of the chemicals is that they are also potentially harmful to animals by inducing hyperglycemia, high blood sugar. Though the grass is not immediately toxic to animals and can be eaten in small quantities without lasting harm, grazers which feed extensively in areas where assassin grasses have displaced most of their competitors for a prolonged period of time are at risk of being sickened and eventually put into hyperglycemic shock. Animals would thus instinctively avoid assassin grasses altogether unless they have exhausted all other available forage, leaving its growth largely unchecked and furthering its ability to spread. Because assassin grasses have few competitors and few animals feed on them significantly if given a choice, they can take over large tracts of open habitat and are a highly successful pioneer species, one of the first to appear and spread after natural disasters, such as fires or hurricanes, that clear large areas of other plant life. They have an effect, too, upon natural forest succession, for the young of trees and forest-forming plants experience extreme difficulty in establishing themselves in the presence of assassin grasses, which abrade their tender new leaves and poison them as they germinate and reach up to the sunlight. For the past 500,000 years that the assassin grass has existed in its modern form, its offensive adaptations have given the assassin grass an extraordinary advantage over other plant life, so much so that across Serina, many millions of acres formerly covered in diverse forest ecosystems have been displaced by at times seemingly endless prairies of this toxic invader, which may now comprise almost 99% of the floral biomass in some environments. Though the seeds of assassin grass are edible to birds, few other large animals can survive well in these environments. meaning that the prairies are a sort of ecological desert, destroying biodiversity wherever they spread, and threatening a great deal of Serina's endemic plant and animal communities. Now, however, this is just beginning to change. Diversity is making a comeback as grasses of other lineages, grasses much more palatable to grazing animals, are returning to the plains, having evolved their own resistance to the toxic compounds produced by these new invasive species. A single forest tree has also emerged with a resistance to sulfonylureas. A member of the broad-leafed sunflower tree family, it superficially resembles a maple with a fast growth habit, branching crown, and large lobed leaves. It produces edible seed pods favored by many woodland animals. Unlike some of its kin, it doesn't utilize ants for protection, but rather produces a thick, sticky sap which insects struggle to chew into without gumming up their mandible or clogging their spiracles and suffocating, but which isn't inherently toxic and is easily broken down by the digestive systems of most higher animals. Aptly called the Gluetrap tree, it is descended from a hardy understory bush which survived in the shade beneath the canopy, and is thus able to germinate and survive even in tracts of dense assassin grass which block most light from reaching the soil beneath them. Able to sprout and develop slowly until they break past the dense crowns of the grasses and into the sunlight, forests of gluetraps then can grow rapidly, eventually producing their own thick canopy of branches which envelop the grass in shade. Adapted to the open plains, the grass cannot survive under shaded conditions and soon dies out, then freeing up the forest floor for the growth and establishment of other jungle trees, including other sunflower trees, which are involved in symbiotic relationships with ants. One type of plant which does not survive well in these forests, however, are the myrmecophyte bamboo trees, which are, for the most part, naturally adapted to be pioneer plants and struggle to establish themselves in the shade of grown trees. Even types adapted to grow in the understory for a while as seedlings are usually displaced, eventually, by long-lived sunflower trees as a forest reaches its climax state. Across Serina, for the first time in more than 60 million years, the global forest ecosystem is beginning to experience new and significant change. The highly diverse bamboo trees, formerly Serina's dominant plant type, will be almost fully displaced by the sunflower trees over the next 25 million years. Their decline will be rapid and dramatic, paved by the spread of the gluetrap trees, eventually leaving them to persist only in their most specialized niches. Some of the lucky ones which will make it past the sunflower tree speciation boom are the bamboo mangroves and their derivatives, the true sea bamboos, which have managed to exploit niches outside the ability of most of their competitors to survive. Ant symbiosis will survive in a degraded state within the sea bamboos, with the sea ant, and within some sunflower trees, which originally developed the mutualistic relationship for the purpose of competing with the bamboo ant trees, which will experience a dramatic decline of diversity across most of Serina by the end of the Thermocene. The tropical conditions of the past 100 million years have been highly suitable for the survival of cold-blooded animals, not only fishes, but also invertebrates. Insects of the late Thermocene are a curious mixture of very modern forms and extremely derived groups very far removed from their ancestors. Ants, of course, are highly successful. In addition to the successful colonial forms, which remain extremely successful, they have also radiated into numerous cosmopolitan lineages of flying insects. Many no longer eusocial, and some barely even recognizable as ants. Groups have developed which may more closely resemble bees, wasps, dragonflies, mosquitoes, and even moths. They may provide active care and deliver food for their offspring, or simply lay their eggs in places rich enough in resources that they can feed themselves once they hatch, such as in carcasses, rotting fruit, or the dung of large animals. The larvae of some have even become aquatic. Early flying ants were Serina's first major pollinators and continued to fulfill this role more prominently out of all Serina's animals. But the herbivorous descendants of ladybird beetles and crickets too have produced flying lineages which may feed exclusively on flower nectar. The latter, known as florgusts, are particularly noticeable due to their large and unusually brightly colored wings. Florgusts of the Thermocene have spread across the planet. As juveniles, they are still very cricket-like, but after molting into adults, they lose their jaws in all but very few primitive species and must feed on flower nectar alone to survive. On the polar opposite of morphology spectrum are grapple bugs, predatory crickets which catch prey in spiked forearms like a praying mantis. Often highly camouflaged, they lie in wait and strike at a speed so fast that the prey has very little time to react. Similar methods of hunting have also appeared in the beetles and multiple times in ants. Though insects make up much of the diet of many birds, a select few insects turn the tables and specialize on hunting birds. Hugger wasps, actually multiple species of colonial vesper, flying ant, which can be found throughout the tropics, exhibit behavior far more grim than their name might suggest. Though no larger than a honeybee, through cooperation they can target prey many times larger than any of the ants could individually. Their preferred victims are small, sparrow-like birds which do not flock in large groups. By targeting the birds as a swarm, and in particular crowding over its head to blind it and bring it to the ground, they can overwhelm their prey's ability to defend itself and kill it with dozens of venomous stings. Once dispatched, the prey is dismembered and the scraps of meat brought home to feed the wasp's young. Cradle robbers are large, solitary vespers able to grow up to 3 inches long, which feed mostly on birds' eggs and their unfledged young. Males, much smaller than their partners, eat mostly other insects, but the bigger female harasses nesting songbirds off their clutches with aggressive diving behaviors and bites to the back of the rump. Once she is flown, the robber makes off with an egg or a living chick. A chick is easily taken apart by her strong jaws, but an egg requires more effort to break open. Usually, she drops it from a height and then laps up the resulting spilled material. Many other predatory insects may also consume birds if the occasion arises, even if they do not eat predominantly birds. Though grapple bugs eat mainly other insects, The largest species occasionally kill songbirds. Burying carrion beetles, introduced to Serina, were quick to expand their diets away from carcasses to living prey, and gave rise to many flightless predators. Both fast-running pursuit hunters, which chase down and kill their food on foot, to sedentary ambush predators. Though most examples of both lineages are modest in size, some can become remarkably large, 6 or 7 inches long, or even larger. Usually it is other insects on the menu, though bird chicks, and the adults of small songbirds, as well as tribits, will all be taken readily by the largest carnivores as well. The 5-inch-long pouncer beetle earns its name from its elongated hind legs, which are folded when running, but can be extended to allow it to suddenly spring forward upon its prey once it has gotten close enough. Pouncer beetles can even catch birds in flight this way. One of the largest predator beetles of all is the bear trap beetle, as large as a lab rat, which hides in the soil along the trails used by small jungle animals of all sorts, reaching out and grabbing hold of their prey in a set of giant spiked jaws as it passes, and dragging it down into a burrow to feed, much like an arthropod crocodile. And of course, we have already been introduced to the predatory burrowing cricket, a major predator of all burrowing animals, both vertebrates and invertebrates. Lastly, not all insects which feed on birds necessarily kill their prey. Bloodsucking is common in Serina's derived flying ants, and to breed, some species both of ant and of burying beetles have become macabre parasites that lay their eggs in wounds and let their larvae feed in the living animal's body. Some beetles take this to an even more morbid extent and create a flesh-bite wound into the flesh of a healthy bird and deposit their eggs inside. The wound quickly heals over, but the larvae soon hatch and feed on the living tissue until they mature and burrow their way back out. Nonetheless, some still prefer to get their young off to a good start with a meal which is already dead. With powerful wings and good stamina, females of some species fly great distances in search of carcasses in which to lay their eggs, guided by a strong sense of smell.